Hi everybody, this is Katie. I wanted to make a quick video that will show you how to configure your IP addresses so that we can use Active Directory properly. So in Chapter 13, before you start with the labs that I assign, you're watching this video so that we can ensure that our IP addresses are configured properly and DNS is configured properly. So I know that this wasn't done earlier because we just threw in any IP addresses to go through that configuration process, and we want to eventually get these servers to communicate. So when we look at our text and what we've been doing the last units, we didn't do any labs on configuring IP version 6 and 4, so we're going to go back and do that right now together. The last two hands-on labs you did DHCP and DNS, and DNS especially needs to be configured properly in order for one of your systems to be a domain controller, which is either in this order for a reason. So we're installing domain controllers, but we need to make sure DNS is configured properly. So you probably have DNS installed and definitely DHCP, but let's make sure our configurations are done properly. Now I'm going to use server C for this because server C is just a basic server. I actually have, you'll notice in my server manager for A, I have Active Directory, domain services, I have DHCP, DNS, file and storage servers, IIS, remote access. This is where I've been testing a lot of things for our lab, so I have all of these services installed. But server C is really, I just have file and storage services. I went back to the very beginning. So I'm starting from the very beginning to make sure I have my configuration set up. I also have a sticky note here, which just are notes to myself that say domains, server C is going to be my domain controller, and then I'm going to configure my IP address so that it can eventually communicate with the other servers on my network. So do this, go along with me in this video so that you can make sure your DNS is configured properly too. Pick a server that's going to be your DNS or your domain controller. So when you start the labs for this assignment, it says right here, before beginning, you need a server to act as your domain controller. What server are you going to use? I'm using, not server A, I'm going to use server C as my domain controller, and make sure everything is configured properly before I can install Active Directory on that. So go back to your servers. That's not it. My servers are here. Make sure I'm on server C. And I just launched my server manager. Okay. And I want to do a couple, add a couple roles and features. So first of all, I don't have DHCP. If you don't have DHCP, add it right now with me. If you do, then you're good. This goes back just a couple chapters. So you probably have it installed. Okay, just going to continue through my error messages. Fix those. And this says you can close the wizard without interrupting the task, so that's good. I'm just going to minimize it. I still don't want to close it because I don't trust it. I want to see it going through the process so it doesn't hang up. And this doesn't take too long either. So make sure you add DHCP over there. Now in the meantime, I can just do one thing at a time. One of the things that we need to go back to is our server properties and set this stuff up, our IP So over here on our dashboard, go over to your local server. So in here, you see local server, and that brings you to the properties of your server. So click on the server C. Okay, everybody needs to do this, and we're going to change our domain name. So click change, and then more, and it asks for a primary DNS suffix for this computer. The primary DNS suffix I have on my sticky note, we're going to name this server 2012.local. Okay? Now you can go and set your properties up on your other server, like server A or server B, if you want all of them to get to communicate and be part of the same network as the same. So I'm not going to mess with server B. I use that as a test server, so I'm just going to close that. But if I went over to server A and I look at the properties of that domain, I have a different name for it. I'm going to change that to just call it server 2012.local. So it's the same step on each of these machines. So they all would, your two servers that you're using, or if you want to put it on all three, they would all share the same primary DNS suffix. So server 2012.local is what that would be. This is important for Active Directory to work. So make sure you check that. And when you back out of here, it says you need to reboot your computer. Changes will take effect after restart. I'm not going to restart right now. I'm going to check on my DHCP. Okay, the other, let's see. I'm going to restart in a minute because I also want to change my IP address. So I'm going to go over to, when I backed out of there, no, my work group name will change once I reboot. Right now it says work group, but it's going to change to that server 2012. Actually, we can change that. Add that to, that will change to a member of that domain once we reboot. Okay, go down here to Ethernet. So we want to change our IP address. So I am using IP version 4. To go to right click and go to properties, and then go down here to IP version 4. And I'm going to set up some static addresses. So for my server C, which is going to be my domain controller, I'm going to pull up my sticky, and it's supposed to stick, right? And it's going to be 10.10.1.3, and fix your subnet mask, because the default goes to class A, but it's /16, so it's a subnet. And then put your default gateway name in here. Whoops. 10.10.1.250, and that will be the same on each of your servers. DNS, primary DNS server, that address is going to be 10.10.1.200. And then hit OK. Then OK. And then you can close out of here. So what you can do on your other servers, notice server C is 10.10.1.3. Server A, make that address, it's going to be a regular server, make that IP address 10.10.1.1, and server B, if you want, make that IP 10.10.1.2. 16. Now I'm not going to mess with my server B right now, but I'm going to go back to A, and just to make sure that you see how I've rebooted this one, so it's already changed, but go over, this is how you do it, go over to Ethernet, again, right click on local server, just go down to local server. This is the properties window, go to Ethernet, right click, and then go to properties here, go down to IP version 4, and then properties there, and plug these numbers in manually. 10.10.1.1, oh, I have an error here, 255.255.0.0, default gateway, I don't have mine in there, 10.10.1.250, and preferred DNS server, you can use 10.10.1.200. Okay. Now, close out of that. Okay, on there. Now is a good time to reboot both of these servers to make sure changes are made, especially with our domain. So we want them to be part of the same domain, which is going to be called server 2012.local. I changed this one. It should be server 2010.local. So let's restart. Restart server A. That's an error I'm getting because of, not because of my server. It's not a server error, it's a workstation with VM workstation error. I'm going to go over to server C and do the same thing. Let me go back to my DNS HCP and make sure that was supposed to configure DHCP. You guys did that already. Complete DHCP configuration. Commit. Okay, so if you needed to do that, go ahead and do that too. These flags are useful up here, you guys. If you notice these, tells you what you need to do. Configuration required for DHCP, and so we just need to reboot. And that should go away after we reboot. Yeah. Let's restart. Okay, the server A is back up. By the way, you should be getting to a point pretty soon where you have to change your administrative password. Write them down for sure. I had to change mine. You have to change it after 60 days, I believe, as administrator. And mine popped up today, so yours should, I installed mine a couple days before you guys did probably, so yours should come up soon. Make sure that you write it down. Go over to server C, see if that's rebooting. And again, if you want to, you can launch server B and just go again to the local server and set up your or configure your IP address for that. You probably should. We don't need to mess with it right now, though. If we do get to a point where we do, I'll make sure that we go back and show you how to do that. I always get this password wrong. Okay, I'm gonna leave server A alone for right now. Let me go down to local server and see if my work group should be catching up. There it goes. Me, it still says server A 2012 local. Here's my IP address. That's good. I want that domain name to not be that. Oh, it's I have a domain controller set up. Oh, no. That's right. Okay, the full computer name is part of the server 2012.local, so that's okay. Okay, so let's go back to our server C, which is where you are. We have DHCP on there. I don't have any messages left. Let me go over to my local server and let's see that my configuration is correct. My work group's changed. Here's my here is my Ethernet or my IP address 10.10.1.3 and go back here and just double check. Okay, everything remained correct there. Shouldn't change it. It shouldn't change it back. My work group didn't change, and I think I don't have DNS set up yet. A member of this domain. What? Okay. Call this server 2012.local. Okay, well, don't do that. Don't change that yet. We have to set up that domain properly first. So let's just leave it as work group. Kind of getting ahead of myself, I think. Okay. But we have our IP configured. So what you might not on server C have DNS installed. Let's install DNS real quick. This was in the last chapter you covered, so you should know how to do it. Just go down to Manage, Add Roles and Features. We're going to go through this process, role-based, select our server. Let's just do DNS right now, DNS server. We're going to have to reboot here, so let's do our install. While that's installing, when you do look in Blackboard, I don't think I have it up right now. There's a new quiz in lesson 13, and there's a transcender assignment that you'll do as well. The quiz is a little different than the ones in the past because I wrote it out of the book, and hopefully you won't have any problems with it. There are some questions that you have to write short answers to, and I'll have to hand check those. No big deal, just let me know. Okay, DNS done. Close. Go down here. Need to check my warnings. Check out what's going on. I apologize if you heard gunfire in the background. It's my son. The scout is on. I have my office door locked so he can't come in, but he's still outside of the door shooting something. Okay. We did through some of these that stuff earlier. I need to. Alright, let's go on to our next section. Now, when I first did installing this lab, when I first did 13.2, I did have some problems. So I want to go through that lab together and make sure that we can get it to work properly. Let's see. I want you to include for 13.1 the things that we just did. You can just do one screenshot and change that. Include a screenshot of the configuration that's requested in this video. Okay, so I'm requesting that right now. This is the screenshot I want you to show me for 13.1 for 25 points. Go over to your servers, to your server that is going to be your domain controller. I want to see that you configured this. So this will still be work group because we have to set up our domain controller before we can go here and make it a member of that domain. We don't have a domain set up yet, so right now it's work group. But I want to see that you have this configured properly, just so I know you've gone through the video. So just go right here, do a snippet of this. New. A, C, and then go over right here. What you'll do, just paste that in there, and that's your 25 points. Now, if you're on server, another server, A, it'll be 1.1, server B will be 1.2, and server C will be 1.3. All right, so let's go down to this next lab. And here, install the Active Directory domain services. These are instructions on page 162. Before beginning, you need a server to be your domain controller. Type that in here. What server are you using? I want to look for your answer there. So I'm using server C. You'll put whatever you are using in there. Be sure to watch this video, and then we're ready to go. So the instructions here, and then we're going to include a screenshot and an explanation of how it went. So let's get going at that. Okay, so following the instructions, launch Server Manager. We want to go to Manage, add roles and features. Next, next, next. And we want to install Active Directory Domain Services, ADDS. Add features. I'm not going to add any additional features right now. well, here's the add features. Now, additional features. Next, next. Restart the server automatically required. I'm going to leave that blank because I want to do that myself. And then I hit install. Actually, this part was easy. It was when I went down to the next one to start working with this domain controller that I couldn't configure it. And that's because my IP addresses were wrong, my DNS server was wrong, and that's why I'm making this video, to make sure that you have all of that set up properly. So what this is doing right now, let's see. I hope this video is helpful and you're not like, get to the point, get to the point. I know I haven't made a lot of videos for you guys yet this semester, but things are going well. Okay. So when we get to this, we're just installing Active Directory domain services. This is just adding the service, so there's not really any configuration. Click install, and then the installation progress page appears. After the role is installed, a promote this server to a domain controller link appears. We need to do that, and that's where we need to connect it with our DNS in order for it to work. So let's go back to our installation, keep an eye on that. Mine, I think when I installed it before, it just automatically rebooted. We're good here. See, promote this server to domain controller. Click that. If you close the window already, you should be able to get to it up here or through ADDS. So like, say you didn't click that option, you'll see an exclamation where it says you need to promote this server, or go over here and you need to promote this server. So you'll be able to get to it if you close that window. So let's promote this server to be an active domain controller. So we're going to add to a new forest. Okay, this is now going on to lab 13-3, creating a new forest. Let's see. So we need to promote it here. So next lab. What you can turn in here, include a screenshot or an explanation of how it went. Again, screenshots just show me that you're doing your work, so you can just take a screenshot of this window, this dashboard right here, because it shows that ADDS is installed. And then, tell me if you have any problems in there. Now we're going on to the next lab, add a new forest, and we need to put in our root domain name. This is where we want to put server 2012.local. Oops. This is where I have problems. Let's see if we can do that. Adding a new forest to server 2012.local. Root domain name. I think that's it. Let's see if it's working. I had problems here earlier. I didn't see if it works. These are grayed out on mine. I think they're going to be grayed out on yours as well. But these are the two we need. We need a specify capability. So we need this domain controller to be a DNS server and a global catalog, which is good because we can't uncheck that anyway. Put in a password for this. I'm using the same password as what my server password is. And write that down too. It won't let you go on until you write down your password or until you type in your password for that directory. And that's a password for DSRM, the restore mode password. Okay, we don't have a authoritative parent zone cannot be found. Sure. Okay. That's okay. Let's hit OK on that. And then next, wait here. You see it's doing things. Geez, it looks like you can't go on further, but it's doing things. It's verifying. Just take some time to set up for this wizard to do its stuff. There we go. It grabs my BIOS name. Next. Still going. Good there. Now, while that's going, if you have exclamation points up here, these warnings, errors, you will want to resolve those. So like on my server A, when I logged in, I had a bunch of things that were messed up. Go and try to resolve those, troubleshoot them. I'm not going to change any of my paths, so I went back to server C. Not changing any of those. Okay. Here's my new domain name. That's also the name of the forest. So, important stuff here. Global catalog, it's a DNS server. My forest name is, write that down, server 2012.local. Next, and then it's going to verify prerequisites for domain controllers. This takes a minute. So just, again, hang tight and then hit install. And that should be, it's working. I'm so glad it's working. Because when I did this, if your DNS is not configured properly, this lab 13.3 will not work. So again, what you need to do, make sure you go through and set up your IP address and have the right domain names there, and then add that server to that domain and not the general work group. I'll do that. I'll make sure mine's done that too. You see it's still doing that. In this file, I'm going to post this for you guys because this is your lab, but I'll keep mine in here so you can see my configurations instead of just using my sticky note here. Here is a copy of Katie's IP configurations for server C. Server. If you're working with server A, IP should be 10.10.1.1, and server B, if you configure it, should be 10.10.1.2. And then everything else is the same. Default gateways, DNS addresses, that's all the same. Leave that little screenshot in there so you can see it. I'll add this too. You don't need, I'm just seeing if you need anything else on the sticky note, but it's all in this picture. And our name is server 2012.local. Okay, let's go see what's going on with my server C. Okay, I ran my prerequisites. They all passed successfully. I'm not going to read through all of those right now. I'm just happy they all passed, so I'm going to hit install to install Active Directory domain services. So, well, not to install it, to configure it. I've gone through that process finally. Now that is this project 13-2. Nope. I told you what to do there. That is 13-3. So do a screenshot of something after it passes the prereqs. Do a screenshot and tell me how it went. And then there's only one more lab. I might as well show you, do that one with you too, because you still need to do your screenshots and go along and do that. In the book, let me jump over to the book real quick. We're not doing all of these labs in here, but there are a couple others I wanted to point out. So installing the Active Directory domain, that one we did. Creating a new forest we're doing right now because we need a new forest so that in our next unit we can create organizational units and groups and stuff. We need to be able to do that. The next one we're not doing, adding a domain controller to a existing domain. But you would do this one if you had, like if you went to server B or server A, you could make that a domain controller and you could add that domain to your existing domain, which is called server 2012.local. You could go to those other servers you have. And again, go to those other servers if you wanted to. We don't need to. Make it a domain controller and then add it to an existing domain. So we went through that process with server C, but we added it to a new forest, and we only end up wanting to have one new forest. So we're not going to do this, but you would do that on your other servers, not the one that you just made your forest on, or you put your main domain controller on. The process is the same. It shows you the same, except that you select your domain name, which is server 2012.local. And then the next lab shows you how to delete that. That shows us how to do it in PowerShell, but we haven't really used PowerShell really. This next lab shows us how to remove a domain controller. I did remove domain controllers. In order to remove a controller, you have to demote it, but the server will show you those instructions. If you have any problems when you're doing this lab and you mess something up and you want to start over, just remove Active Directory domain services, demote your domain controller. So you would go through this lab here that's on page 171. So I didn't assign that one. You don't have to do that one unless you mess things up and you want to just start over, then do it. And then the last thing is we want to create a global catalog server, or create this as a global catalog server. And this should already be set up, but I want to see that Active Directory doesn't have a big red X on it and that it's working right, because this is where we create our users and groups. So let's go over to our servers. Okay, you see my server C, it rebooted at the end of that installation process, so you'll have to go back in and grab a screenshot of something. Let me let this reboot, and then I'll come back and we'll finish up with that last quick lab. Oh, okay, your rebooting is probably taking a minute as well. Okay, my server just rebooted. Let me search. Darn you. Okay, see my password expired, so time to change it. One of the other passwords that you can use that will meet Microsoft's rules, you could do capital PASSWORD 01. That's a little bit easier than those $signs, but whatever you do, write it down. You are going to be in a world of panic and tears if you forget your password. Alright, here's my server C. My dashboard should have some more things going up there. Loading. Loading. I have no flags, that's very good. This one I have 4 roles installed. I'm monitoring my server. Things look good. No red X's, server groups, server totals. Okay, let me go over to here. There we go. This is what we want to make sure changes to. I go over to my local server. Make sure this is your domain, 2012 server 2012.local. Now, let me log into my server A because when this one still says something wrong or work group. Let me reboot this one. Okay. I have this is a domain controller too, but when we eventually want these to communicate, they're going to be on the same domain. So this one, mine right now is on a different domain. So let me just show you how to correct that. I need to demote my domain controller. Well, I'll do that later. But yours should be fine. Yours should be fine because you never put in that one that I put in. It should be just server 2012.local, like this one. Okay, so the last task, all I have to do over here is remove Active Directory, and then I can go through that process again. So here's our last task. We want to make sure that this is a global server. And it is because we selected that option, but I want to show you how you can go in there and make sure everything is right. So from the Server Manager tools, we want to go to Active Directory Sites and Services. It's up here. Tools, Active Directory Sites and Services. Now if you did anything wrong, you're going to have, this is a red X. We don't want any red X. We want this to be perfect. So expand this, expand the sites, expand the servers folder, which is over here. There it is. Right click, so here's the server. Right click the NTDS. So double click on your server and it opens up these settings. Right click on that and go to properties, and this is where you can make it a global catalog. Now it already is. It is because that's how we installed it. So just take a screenshot of like this window right here so I can see that you don't have a big red X and that it's global catalog. And you know, if it went well or didn't go well in your screenshot. And that is all of this chapter. It's really important that we get this set up and working right, because our next unit we are going to go into managing Active Directory. So we now have a domain controller, and when we go into this next section, Active Directory Administrative Center, we need to be able to create users and groups. And users and groups exist in a forest, which is in a domain, and you need those things set up in order for us to create these users. And if it's not configured properly, you just can't do it. I hope you found this video helpful. The next couple units, we're going to do 2 at a time. These chapters, we only did 1 this week because I really wanted to keep chapter, where's my, I don't have the, oh, it's over here. I really wanted to keep these couple chapters together. 14 and 15, they go together. So those we'll do together. 16, 17, and 18 are all on policies. Those we'll kind of do together, and 19 is firewall. So we'll have enough time to finish. And enjoy this lab. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.